following is a production of the University of Minnesota.
Doing schools, low-cost schools for Hispanics and African Americans. So we're trying to get back to where we started out, to like almost gratuitous schools for the poor people. At St. Mary's right now, we've had some brothers from Colombia learning English, and when they talk about their educational system down there, the colleges and universities they have, we can't begin to touch the numbers and the sizes of their universities and colleges. So we are like a major presence throughout the world. I noticed there are probably some octogenarians in the crowd, and last March I turned to be a nonagenarian. So with that, my body's falling apart. So that's part of why I have such difficulty with doing things and getting around. I'm just 90 years old, so you have to expect that. But getting on to what to talk about tonight is on inventions. I have been at St. Mary's University in Minnesota for about the last 45 years. And if you're familiar with the area down there, it's a beautiful area for camping near the Mississippi River and the Root River and Zumba River, and just a lot of wonderful places. And the academic dean was trying to get the fire department to put in a camping course, and they never would. They were stuck, and nothing was going to do it. So he said, "Okay, I'm dean. I'll do it myself." So through an odd set of circumstances, I was asked if I could lead up that program. Now, I had never really done any camping before to speak of, except I did an 8-day trip in the Quetico a couple of years earlier. But as kids, I grew up in Minneapolis. And if you're familiar with Minneapolis at all, we're about 2 miles south of Powderhorn Park and about 2 miles northwest of Lake Nokomis. So as kids, we would go walking out to Minnehaha Park, we'd walk out to the airport, we'd walk out to Fort Snelling, we'd cross the river, we learned about Hidden Falls. This is like in 6th and 7th grade now. And so we just were always doing that kind of stuff. In wintertime, the area around our house was a lot of swampland, and we could go skiing through the swampland. And in those days, we used to do a lot of skiing, downhill skiing and so on in the neighborhood. But once in a while, we would say, let's go on a ski hike. It was before the days of cross-country skiing, but so I was kind of always interested in that kind of stuff. Kind of just grew up with it. But anyway, getting back to this camping stuff and my inventions, we started out at St. Mary's with a course called canoe camping, and it was set up in such a way that it was a 2-week session. We'd have a couple classes, a couple practices the first week, go out Friday night, and come back on Saturday morning. The second week, we had one class. We'd talk about how it went on our first weekend, and then we'd have a canoe trip at night, which kind of kids got kind of excited because we could find our way back when it was pitch dark. So that was an interesting experience for them. Then the second weekend was a 2-nighter, and I tried to make it in such a way that that second weekend was their trip. They planned the meals and everything, and I just kind of watched what was going on. So they were very successful. We ended up with 2 sessions at once. I was able to hire a guy who could do the work, and then we ended up with 3 2-week sessions, one after the other. So we took care of about 60 kids every fall, and so I did that for a while, and then one of the kids says, "Well, brother, why can't we do winter camping?" Well, I said, I've never done it. So he said, well, we know how. So I set up the course and let them teach it. And they came back and said, oh, brother, it was terrible. The kids wouldn't come to the practice walks. They were smoking dope on the weekend and so on. So I said, well, listen, if we're going to have winter camping, I got to teach it. So that's how I got kind of hooked into doing winter camping, which worked out very nice. I enjoyed that very much. I did. At the time, I was doing three half-time jobs. I was working in the science department. I was running dormitories, and I was doing the camping program. So after 4 years, I figured we were able to hire somebody else to do the program. But I kept on doing winter camping for a time, and then about 3 years before I retired, I got out of the dormitory when I turned 65, and I started teaching winter camping again. And one of the problems with winter camping, if you've ever used a mummy bag, is that you have this thing over your head. You have a small opening around your mouth, and if the bag is just the right size, the opening is by your mouth, and you breathe out of it. But what happened for me was it was up by my forehead. So I had to go like this, put my head way back, and I could breathe through that. But then when I roll around at night, you're breathing inside the bag, and you know when you're laying on your side, you drool, so you're sleeping in your spit, and so it dawned on me that this is not right, so I said, I'm going to make I had some insulating materials. I'm going to make a separate hood that's big enough so that I put some straps under the arm so that I put that on, and then I can roll around at night and it'll work okay, and that opening will stay right in my mouth. So I did that, and it just worked beautifully. So the next year I made 5 more for the kids in the class. And then it happened that they didn't assign me to teach winter camping in the 3rd year. So I had gotten an ad from Paul Shirkey, who runs dog sled trips up in Boundary Waters. He said, well, I'm going to go on one of his dog sled trips. So I did, and I took my hood along, and afterwards I showed him the hood, and he was pretty excited about it, because he said, now, I'm going to take 15 kids out for an interim for 3 weeks up in Quetico. Can you make me enough hoods for all those kids? So I said, yeah, I think I can do that. So I did that. So he's using those. Now, going back a little bit, in case you don't know who Paul Shirkey is, in 1986, Paul Shirkey and Will Steger organized a dog sled trip to the North Pole. This was a unique trip because they took with them everything that they needed, the whole trip. There were no caches, there were no stopwatch, there were no relief at anything. So it was an extremely difficult trip for them. And they wanted a woman along, and there was a woman named Ann Bancroft who had been teaching outdoor courses in St. Paul, so they invited her to come along. So she did, and one interesting story about that thing is that they had sleeping bags that weighed 10 pounds apiece. When they finished, the sleeping bags weighed 50 pounds apiece. And so I asked her at one of her presentations, now how come they got so heavy? She said, well, we weren't supposed to pull down inside the bag, but we did. Well, sometimes it'd be 70 below zero up there. So all their breath was going into the bag. Now, if you probably know that in the wintertime, air is very dry. But when you breathe dry air in the wintertime, you exhale completely saturated air. So people in a sleeping bag, if you're breathing air in and breathing air out, all that moisture from your breath goes into the sleeping bag. And where does it go? Well, it makes its way to the outside. And now it's 70 below zero on the outside. What do you think happens to that water? It freezes, you see. So day after day that keeps going up, so the bags get heavier and heavier and heavier. Well, so one of the couple of interesting things about that trip was that 2 of the guys got seriously injured and had to be flown out. So that left 6 people. Toward the end of the trip, they had these sleeping bags that weighed 50 pounds apiece. And the leaders thought, you know, if they were big bags, big enough to put 2 people in the bag, they said, if we just ditch 3 of those bags, we can save 150 pounds. So they did. So that meant people had to sleep 2 together in a bag, and for that left, Ann Bancroft had to sleep with one of the guys. Well, now, Ann Bancroft was a lesbian, so I don't think she enjoyed that very much. But well, one interesting story about Ann Bancroft too is somebody asked her at one of her trips, "What was the most difficult thing you experienced on your trip to the North Pole?" Well, she had fallen into the water and got soaked. You know, and it was bad. She says the worst thing was having to pee in a tent with a guy present. Well, anyway, so well, I showed my hoods to Paul Shirkey, and he was pretty excited about them, and so I was excited about them, and also wanted to go into commercial production, and it turned out that this was in like in 1991 or 92, and I found out that Ann Bancroft was going to take a trip across the South Pole with 3 other women. And so I knew that they were going to need my hoods. They were going to need this thing, so they would not be breathing into the bags. So I made special hoods for them, and so I made special. This has 3 layers of insulation in it, and for their trip to the South Pole, I made bags with 5 layers of insulation. Now. There are some interesting things about this hood. I can't take time to show all the features of it. I'm disabling one of the features in it right here, right now. But goes on very easily, and if you take it and run this thing down about the size of a racquetball, that will stay at your mouth all night long because you got arm straps under your arms, and absolutely no moisture goes into your sleeping bags, 0. So it's a tremendous deal. When I showed it to Ann Bancroft, she said, "I'll never leave home without it." So it has one of the features that it has is that you can reach in the back here and turn it inside out. And if the weather is pretty warm and you don't want to use the whole thing, you take this out. That's a layer of insulation, so that you end up then with 2 layers of insulation, and then it's fine. Now I've had cases when I was sleeping, when it was like say 40 degrees out. This was way too much, you know, and so I'd be a little bit chilly because I was in a summer bag. So I'd put my hood on, and I'd just be toasting the rest of the night. It's just astonishing. So it really is a tremendous, if I do say so, a tremendous invention. It's a tremendous thing for helping people who like to do winter camping, to camp out in the winter and have a good sleep. Because one of the biggest reasons when people will not camp in winter is they think they can't get a good sleep. Now, one of the benefits of this in wintertime is that if you're lying on one side and you're cold, all you need to do is roll over onto a warm side, then go back to sleep again. And this makes it very easy to do that. You can't do that just in a plain sleeping bag. So there's just a lot of benefits involved in doing that whole process. Now, this you may say, how do you get this back in here? Well, each of these liners has a black spot at the top, and if I take the hood and turn it completely inside out, if I put my left hand up in the hood and grab where the inner layer and the outer layer come together, and grab where this black spot is, then I tuck the corners in, and it goes back together very, very easily. So, you know, you can do that in a garment. You don't need to see what's going on in there. Now, one thing I can't show you right now, I won't take time, is that some people like to wear this around the camp, but it's much too loose. Now, inside here is another drawstring. If I pull that drawstring to a certain tightness, I can put this hood on and it'll go like this, right around my glasses and under my nose. So if a person wants to wear it around camp, you can do that. So it has a lot of flexibility, and it weighs about 12 ounces, and I sell this for $50, and I haven't raised the price for 25 years. But at any rate, I'm kind of at the end of the line for this, because I have 2 of these left, and I have parts for making about 25 more, but I'm making a move to get into a rest home, so I don't know what's going to happen with those things. One of the 2 is going to go to the archives for a record of some of the things that I've done. And another friend told me she really wants to buy one, so I'm hanging on to that for her also. So that's the story of the hood. Now, if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to ask, because I don't have a prepared speech. I'm just kind of winging it.
So do you have is there anybody out there in the commercial field, the business field, that wants to buy this concept from you?
Does anybody want to buy this?
There's supposed to be a whiteboard over here.
He's got a...
Is there a There's supposed to be a,
Is anybody in the commercial
Yeah,
field?
yeah. Well, I have a website, see. So if you want to find out what I'm doing, what I'm making, all this kind of stuff, this, I kind of call it the Finbar hood. So it's my name on it. And it's an interesting, catchy name and so on. So if you Google Finbar hood, my website will pop up right away. You don't have to look through 10 different pages to find it. It'll immediately come up. So I sell them.
But I'm saying, when you're done making them,
I'm done making them.
so there's going to be a demand out there, I would think.
Well,
there'd be a demand.
the thing is that it's always puzzled me that there has not been a huge demand, you know. One of the problems is that the things that I make, nobody else makes. Nobody knows this thing is out there. So nobody's looking for a hood for sleeping bags. So somehow they do find them periodically, you know. But and I've been very terrible, inept at marketing. I've spent about $10,000 on marketing and got 0 sales. So I said, oh, forget it, you know. I got a website, yeah.
So by what you just said, so I'm assuming you don't have any, there are no competitors, there's no competition out there. And my second question is, would you be willing to probably to license it?
I would, well, I'm not sure exactly what your question is, but I would love to have somebody take over the operation. And I would do it in a way that the person would pay me out of sales. There would be no money up front, so I'm not in debt. I don't know. I think it's too good to let it die, you know. But it takes somebody who's willing to do it, and so I've got all the patterns. I have, as I say, I have 25 parts all cut out, just need to be sewn together for this thing. I have a lot of other extra material. It's still, can be cut into parts, patterns and whatnot. But so that's.
So, I'm sorry, I arrived late.
No.
So are you doing them one by yourself? Are you making them yourself?
Well, now I am, of late I have been making them myself, yes. When I started out doing them, I had contacted a program in Minneapolis called Project Regina, which was run by the Dominican nuns teaching immigrant women to sew. And so I would contract with them, like to make 300 of these things at one time.
Would you be willing to go overseas for manufacturing?
Say again?
Would you be willing to go overseas for manufacturing?
Overseas to make
For mass
them?
production?
Well, the thing is, I think, I kind of shied away from that because it's just, if you start selling them, a lot of them, somebody else is going to jump in and get them done for a cheaper price, and I just don't have the energy to do it. So I'm at 90 years old. I'm not gonna fool around with that, But I mean, if somebody wanted to do it, I would be glad to help them do it, in any way possible. Yeah.
Can I just go back to my very first question? Who would be your main competition? Oh, I'm sorry.
Who now? Who would be? Anybody who wanted to make more money than I did. The people know how to get stuff done over in China or in Indonesia and North South Korea and many other places. They know how to do it. They'll do it over in Thailand, And so if you're selling a lot of these things, they're going to jump in and do it, So it's. I just was not going to get interested in the competition. I tried to do this with the military. I sent over some copies, and they said it's really a nice idea, but when you present something like this to the military, it has to be put up for bid. And so somebody else I know would underbid me on it, and so I said, "Oh, to hell with it." So I just was not going to fire around with doing it. So that's where it is. I mean, I wasn't doing this to make a lot of money. I was doing this because I knew this would give people a nice winter camping experience that they couldn't possibly have otherwise. So that was the whole deal behind this whole thing. But that's so much enough for the hood anyway. So that was the first thing, the hood. Now a bunch of other things developed. Paul Shirky said, now Paul Shirky has been using those hoods that I made for him. He takes people to the North Pole on commercial trips. What he does is he flies the people across the ice ridges, which are jumbles of ice, maybe 20 feet high, and just almost impossible to cross. They had to chop their way through. So he flies them across and goes up there. But he has been taking my hoods with him to the North Pole for maybe 10 or 15 years. And so they've had a lot of experience. A lot of people have seen them, And one time he said to me, now, some of the people, their feet get cold. Could you make me some bag booties, some booties for their feet? So I said, yeah, I can do that. So this is what I call a bag booty. It doesn't look like much, but it'll hold a pair of feet. Now, the reason I made it one booty for 2 feet is so that if your feet do get cold, you can rub your feet together and give yourself a foot rub and warm your feet up. So I have some of these up here that I am never going to sell. So if people are interested in these things, I've got a box, maybe 10 or 12 of those that are completed, and then I have another maybe half a dozen that have not been put together. So, but if people are interested, I'm I'm going to just have to throw them away. So if somebody wants them, that's fine. You can have them. Now, one of the other things that I developed is this, which is a ski tip that clamps onto a pair of skis. Now, the reason I developed this is that we would do some of our camping in the backwaters of the Mississippi, which is a lot of marshy land. And marshland, of course, has marsh grass. And when you get snow, the snow bends the grass down like this, so it's interlocking. When you go through that with a ski, you're stuck. You can back out, but you're stuck backwards. So all you can do is take your skis off and hope to go ahead again. So that was very frustrating. So I just said, well, so I had some stuff. I knocked together some tips like this out of sheet metal, and we just, the first person going through is the only person who has to wear them. We just breathe right through all those marshy areas at all. So as time went on, Mike Chickanowski, who owns Winona Canoes, I know him quite well, and he said, you know, we make these molded canoes, and there's all kinds of, they start out with a big rectangular piece of plastic, and then they put it over the mold of the canoe. They heat it up to about 300 degrees first. Then they clamp some stuff down and suck it down into the mold, and you got these corners which are just sitting there doing nothing. So he's wondering, can you think of some way to make use of that wasted plastic? I said, oh. So this is made out of that kind of plastic that he uses for his canoes. So I developed a system of cutting these out and shaping them and bending them to shape. And these are just fantastic for if you make your own trail in the woods, because they'll go over any kind of logs that are buried. They'll go up over the grass. And you know, if you've been out in snow very much, that after a week or so, the snow settles. Well, these things are much better than snowshoes if like the snow is like 14, 15, 16 inches is deep, because it rides up out of the snow. You just ski along and it rides up out of the snow. And if you're going someplace and coming back later on, you've got a prepared trail. And well, these never took off, but many people here watch the programs on TV about those people in Alaska. When I see those people in Alaska, I say, oh man, they're most of the time they're running a trap line on perfectly flat land, you know, and this type of thing would be much better than snowshoes. It's just so much better. You just can't hardly beat it. So that's another thing. Another thing while I'm talking about those programs from Alaska is that if you check out my website, you'll notice there's a section in there called Outdoor Tips. So if you like to camp or do camping, you'll find things in there that you'll never find anywhere else. You just aren't going to find them. And one of the things that I developed is this little hose for blowing on a fire. Now, in one sense I invented it, in another sense I didn't, because I wasn't the first inventor. After I've been using this for several years, I read an old book on camping, and lo and behold, the guy says the best thing to bring along on a camping trip is a rubber hose with a piece of rubber, steel or tubing in one end for blowing on a fire. And you can take a fire where it's just barely going out, almost going out, and you blow on that, and it just starts, all of a sudden, comes right out in fire. So if you're cooking on a campfire with you know, you can control the fire so easily. It's hard to pay attention to whatever is happening all the time on the fire, but if you let it go down a little bit, you just take a blow on this thing and it just immediately comes back up again. Now, this is no big deal. But here's what you can do. If you know some place that has these milk machines or pop machines, the pop comes in a cardboard box with a plastic liner. That box has a plastic tube going from the box. So if you ask somebody, save me one of those, will you? And then if you know an archery store, if they find a metal broken arrow, the metal broken arrow is just perfect to fit in one of those tubes. So this is about the handiest thing there is for cooking over a fire. Is you can blow hard as you want or as easy as you want and just control the fire completely. So this is another one of the things that I've done. Now some more of the stuff is on the table here. Yeah, okay. When I got to be around 57 years old, I got a motorcycle, because among the brothers you could get a motorcycle in those days, but you couldn't own a car. So I would go motorcycle camping. So you got to know how to get things done. And I was riding along one day, and I was thinking, now, to try to pack something like this on the motorcycle is just a pain in the neck, and it just takes up so much space. So I said to myself, now what can I do to develop a fire grate that would not take up a lot of space? And so what came to my mind was a Z. Because you can do this with a Z. And then all you got to do is find some end pieces to put on it and make your fire grate for holding a pot. Now this thing will hold 2 8-inch pots over a fire, and it won't sag. It won't, unless you build a terribly big fire. It won't do that. This is an unused fire grate. I have about 7 or 8 of those left, but that's the end of the line on those. But this is what it gets to look like after you've used it. It's just all black, but you rub it off with snow or leaves or anything, and it doesn't. And it comes in a little plastic sack, so it doesn't get your pack dirty. Now, the interesting thing is, the first one I made was this one, and I made this one for a trip to Alaska when I was going to do some sea kayaking. When I celebrated the 50th anniversary as my time as a brother, I wanted to spend a whole summer in Alaska doing sea kayaking. Well, I was up there all summer, but after 1 week of sea kayaking, I was too pooped out to do anything. But I did make this fire grate. And this, again, it was very small, but I knew this was way too big and sturdy for what we needed for camping, so I was able to buy the tubing and the stainless steel, and I did work for the science shop at St. Mary's University, and they had a very nice machine shop with a lot of bending equipment and so on, so I was able to make all these parts for that. And I got to a point where I would make these in batches, and I could make 4 an hour. So the material cost me about $5, and I sold them for $24 a piece. And since they didn't have to do any middlemen, just selling them over the internet, that was a pretty good markup on my time, when you figure that. So that was one of my nicer inventions, that fire grate. I didn't bother about trying to patent that. I patented the hood, and it was a waste of money because it didn't sell enough for anybody to want to jump into the market. So, but anyway, you learn some of those things. Yes.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
All right.
First, what kind of insulation do you have in this sleeping bag?
Okay. I didn't do the right thing in the beginning, and the insulation in the outer shell of these things is a kind of a run-of-the-mill insulation. It's nothing special. After I got that started, I found out about 3M Light Loft, which is about as nice and maybe better than down. It's very light and quite an insulation. So the removable thing is made of Light Loft, and the shell on the inside is Light Loft also. Now, one thing about the inner shell is it's nylon, but it's called supplex nylon. And the nylon can be, when it's 30 degrees below zero, that can be really cold on your skin. Nylon supplex doesn't have that feature. It's kind of nice. And they make raincoats out of nylon supplex. So this thing, when you have it, when you're breathing at night, it gets sopping wet, but it dries out real fast. So that's one question.
Yeah, also, why don't you patent these inventions? Maybe you could do quite well and get royalties.
This I did patent. It was a waste of $5,000.
Yeah, and you say it takes can it be mass produced by machines, these things, or is it?
No, it's pretty much person sewing. Yeah.
But I think that if these things you have, they're man-made, they could be a little expensive, but they're good.
Some of the things could be done by machine. I'll talk about them later on. But I'm kind of I hope I'm not taking up too much time. I don't know. I want to run through a few other things that I have. Give me these thing there and a little bit also. Okay. One of the brothers is an ardent cross-country skier, and he goes up northern Minnesota constantly, and he will be on trips that go for 2 days and so on and so forth. And he says they wear these very skinny suits that are lycra or something. I don't know what they're made of, but he says my belly gets cold when I'm going downhill because I'm not using his muscles. So he says, can you make me something to keep my belly warm? So I said, oh yeah, I can do that. So I cut out this thing out of nylon supplex, and this is Light Loft again insulation, and then I would sew a piece of this ripstop nylon to the front of it, and all the guy would do would open up his suit, put this in and zip it in, and it would stay in place. So I didn't sell any of those. So I gave him my pile of belly warmers, and he gave them away up at some races. So that's okay. Another young friend of mine was doing cross-country skiing in high school at Eden Prairie, and she says, when we go downhill, my thighs get really cold. I said, oh, I can take care of that. So I made this to fit inside the suit for the pants. And I haven't sold any of these either. So I got a bunch of these up here. If people want these, you can have them. If people want to take some of these, and I've got about 5 fronts, you can have them also. So if you take them, it'll save me a lot of trouble. So I won't have to sell them. I won't have to throw them away and get rid of them. So that's about all I do. Any more questions now before we go on to a couple other things? Okay. One of my friends was teaching elder hostel, and he knew about a thing called a Ma roller, and it's a double hump roller like a Bactrian Campbell, and you put this on your back and you lie down on it, and it breaks up the cramps. Now, is there anybody in here who can walk barefoot over pebbles and not feel pain? The reason your bottom of your feet feels pain is that your muscles are cramped up. Now, this Ma roller and play, instead of just being for the back, which it is, it also can be used to deal with this neck muscle here. So so you can put pressure. But anyway, if this one would fit right over on the right hand, your right foot, right on the instep, your right foot, you just press on that, and it'll feel painful. If you don't increase the pressure, the pain will go away. If you increase it some more, it'll come back again. Now you just move your foot along here and do this. If you would do this for 2 weeks, every day, you can get to a point where you can actually put your full weight on one foot on this roller. It will take those cramps away. It just does it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so I didn't invent this. I did see an old one, very ancient one time that had a patent number on it. So there's probably is a patent on the model, but it's, they only last for 17 years, then the patent's gone. So, but at any rate, I made a bunch of these. The reason I have this one in particular is some guy out east teaches a yoga class. And every so often he says he gives me an order for some of these things. Well, he gave me an order for 3 of these things about 9 months ago, and he's never sent me the rest any money for them, so he's out of luck. So I have 3 of these ready to go. But huh? Well, I'd have a hard time showing it, but you lie down on it. You lie down on your back, and if it's too painful, you get a thick book to put under your rump, and then it won't be so painful. It's just then you just lay back on it, and then when you lay back on it, it'll be painful, but don't increase the pressure. The pressure will go away. And if you go up, then I move it up about ½ inch at a time, and so on, so up and down. I have a set of instructions that come with this thing as to how to use it, but I can, if I roll my back with this thing in the evening, by the time I get up to my shoulders, I can fall asleep on the floor. So it seems cruel, but once you start doing it, it's not so bad. It works. It's really nice for breaking down the things. And one of the things about it is that if you put your pressure on your back with this, the pain goes away. You know it's a muscle. If it doesn't go away, maybe you got a nerve you're working on, or something else you're working on, or a bone or something. So then you quit. But if the pain goes away, then you know it's a muscle, and you're not going to hurt anything. So this is quite a neat item. It's ancient. Any questions on that?
How much are those?
Huh?
How much do you want for one of those?
Oh, I sell these for $24. Look on my website. Get my website, yeah. Now, the other things that I have are not camping things. Let's see. Give me the grape slicer and the grapes and that thing, yeah. When I was doing my own cooking, I like to make salads. And I like very much to, I need that little dish also for the grapes. I like to put grapes in my salad, but it's hard to spear a solid grape in a salad. It just doesn't work. So what I did was I came up with this idea of a little cutting board for grapes. So I'm going to show you how this works. I got two knives up here for a purpose. You have to have a sharp knife. And basically, now when we're finished, I brought a whole bunch of grapes along, so you guys can practice this if you want. You can see what it's like. So you just have to hold the grapes with fingers. You end up with sliced grapes. It's really easy to do, you know. You kind of press on the side of the grapes, you know, and just you need a real sharp knife and bingo. It really works neatly though. So that's the grape slicer, and this is something that could be made if somebody had a CNC machine. It could be made very inexpensive out of wood, but it would be made a lot less costly out of plastic. This could be molded very easily, you know. But then of course the mold might cost $5,000, so you have to make sure there's a market for it, you know. So, but anyway, that's what that is. So this is not patented. So if you want to do it, you can do it. Oh, there's a clamp somewhere. Yep. So that's the grape slicer. If you come up later on, you're going to use this knife. Put these away. I do a lot of woodworking, and one of the very common and interesting things they have these days are these little clamps for squeezing wood. Now, at 90 years old, I'm kind of out of it. I was out of it for the last 10 years. So I said, oh man, I'm telling you, this I can't do it. So look at that. So sorry. So, but basically, one of the benefits. I've never tried to sell these, but I think these are marketable because there are more and more women doing woodworking. Now, this is one way to put the handle together. This way gives you a much wider gap, and this way it gives you an even wider gap. But you can still hold it as easily as before. So these handles have quite a nice flexibility to them. So basically what I'm going to do is pass them around. You can try them out. You can see how hard it is without them, and then but anyway, that's that. Now the next thing I've done is I like to eat English muffins. I like to take an English muffin and put peanut butter on it and raisins as my lunch. And if you buy pre-sliced English muffins, they slice them when they're hot and they glue back together again, you know, and the thickens the thing to get them separated. It's terrible, you know. So I said, well, I'm going to make a board for slicing English muffins. Now, this is dangerous, and you have to just use your thumb on this. If I were to sell these, I would have to have a piece of wood on here on the hinge and come down. But here's what you do. It couldn't be nicer, you know. It's easy to do. They're both about the same size, and so that's. You can. I got 5 more muffins, so some people can practice these afterwards if you want to. So, but anyway, that's those are some inventions, I guess you'd call them inventions because nobody else has done them, you know. So that's those. Yeah, the cardboard. I have some friends who live in Nantucket Island, and they have a very big house. And every time I go out to visit them, they have a jigsaw puzzle on a dining room table that nobody's using. And so I would always get in the process of working in jigsaw puzzles. So one time I went to the mail and what did I get? I got a jigsaw puzzle of a cottage on Nantucket Island. Now, I don't have any space in my room. My room where I live has got a bed and a desk and some furniture and like a TV set and a dresser on the wall. I have no place in my room to set up a crossword, a jigsaw puzzle. So I don't know what's going either. But anyway, so what I did was I said, well, okay, I don't want to just ignore them and throw it away. So I took a piece of cardboard and put a border around it. And this piece of cardboard was big enough to hold the puzzle. So I put all the pieces down on this puzzle. Now, you know when you do a jigsaw puzzle, you got to spread things out on a table. So I thought I made 2 of these other boards, but maybe just one. So I was visiting a friend out in Colorado, and they do jigsaw puzzles also, but he had bought a jigsaw puzzle organizer, which was a set of boxes about 1 inch high and about 8 inches square, where you would take your jigsaw puzzle, sort all the pieces according to color in the different boxes, and then work from there, you know. So basically what I would do is I would take this second piece of cardboard and put the different colors in different corners of it and work at them separately and then work on this. So, but I think, when I wanted to put this away, I would just do this with it, and I could slide them under my TV set, bing, they're out of the way. So I think people who live in a small apartment could really use something like this, you know. But does it have a market value? I don't know. But it solved a problem for me. So that's what I did on that. So that is pretty much my demonstration. Now. So if you have any questions, both of those, this slicer for what do you call it, English muffins, could also be made out of by molding. Now, one of the problems with it is that that top piece I have has a groove underneath there to let the blade go in, and if you could make that out of plastic, out of 2 pieces, if you could have the bottom piece with a higher section, then you'd have a top piece to snap on it for holding in place, and then it would not be too hard to make that kind of a mold. So that could be done. Yeah.
Seems like you did a lot of this invention later in your life. When you were a kid growing up, did you have a lot of curiosity in doing anything like this? I mean,
well, when I was a kid, you know, I used to take apart my toys and stuff like that and fix things and do some other stuff, and I was always doing some kind of mechanical things, and I got into wood carving, but this stuff that started when I was teaching the camping course was kind of the beginning of a lot of this stuff, because when you make like a thing like the fire grate or the ski tips, you need to make jigs and fixtures that allow you to do it quickly, And each one of those is a kind of an invention in one sense, you know. But I do remember when I was younger, my younger days as a brother, I was wondering, he says, I wonder if I'll ever get a patent on something. And I just wonder about it. I wasn't anxious for it, but I just said, I wonder how I'm going to patent. So well, yeah, I finally got one, but it was just a waste of money, but that's okay too. So any other questions? So I probably will be, you know, want to sell out what I have, and I don't know exactly how it's going to work, and I don't know how soon I'll get into a rest home, but I'm ready to go there. You know, it's just to simplify my life without all kinds of making things and so on. But I have other things I can do too. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
And before everybody takes off, I will actually have you pick our door prize winner for tonight.
Sure.
Janet Rich. Congratulations. And thank you everybody for coming out tonight.